all coming up, so stay tuned. So, HR Pufnstuf, like many other shows, only lasted one season and ran for only 17 episodes. It's really funny how some of them...
A soda company dragon became television's trippiest mayor. A fast food giant stole puppet designs and got destroyed in court for over $1 million. One creator took legal guardianship of his teenage British star and later called it a huge mistake. The name itself was marijuana slang, hidden in plain sight on Saturday morning television. These are 40 wild facts about HR Pufnstuf that will completely change how you remember this psychedelic childhood fever dream. Fact 40. The theme park that bankrupted dreams. The Croft brothers believed so deeply in their amazing creations that they opened an entire indoor amusement park dedicated to their characters. In May 1976, the world of Sid and Marty Krofft opened inside Atlanta's Omni International Complex with an initial investment of $14 million. The park featured HR Pufnstuf rides, elaborate character meet and greets, and the longest escalator in the entire world at that time. The park needed 1 million visitors annually just to break even on operating costs. It attracted only 300,000 visitors in its entire run. After hemorrhaging $1.5 million in losses, the operation shut down after just 6 months. The building where children once rode Pufnstuf attractions is now the headquarters of CNN. Fact 39. The censorship that missed everything important. NBC network censors firmly demanded that the Krofft stop having Witchy Poo hit her minions with her magic wand. The network claimed this puppet on puppet violence was too intense for young viewers. They specifically complained about scenes where Witchy Poo would swipe Orson the Vulture on the beak during her villainous rants. Meanwhile, these same censors completely missed every single drug reference in the entire series. They worried about cartoon violence while characters discussed roach beef sandwiches and transformed into magic mushrooms. The show had hippie trees singing about peace and love. Talking mushrooms smoked cigars throughout multiple episodes. None of this raised any red flags. Fact 38. The film stock decision that nearly destroyed everything. HR Pufnstuf was the only Krofft production ever shot on actual professional film rather than videotape. This decision gave the show its rich colors and distinctive psychedelic visual quality that made it stand out from everything else on Saturday morning television. The vibrant oranges, purples, and greens that defined Living Island would not have been possible with cheaper videotape technology. However, this artistic choice nearly bankrupted the entire production company. Film stock cost significantly more than videotape for every single minute of footage. Every subsequent Krofft production switched to videotape specifically because of how much money they lost making this series look beautiful. Fact 37. The dual performance system nobody saw. Every time HR Pufnstuf appeared on screen, two completely different performers were creating the character simultaneously without ever being in the same room together. Roberto Gamonnet wore the heavy foam costume and provided all the physical movements that brought the Dragon Mayor to life on camera. Lenny Weinrib recorded the voice separately in a studio weeks later, giving Pufnstuf his distinctive southern accent, inspired by the character's origins in San Antonio, Texas. Gamonnet was born in Honduras in 1923, and this television series appears to be his only known acting credit in Hollywood history. He passed away in 1982, largely unknown despite being the physical embodiment of one of television's most recognizable characters. Because of budget constraints, voice actors were never present on set during actual filming sessions. Fact 36. The ripple effect that never stopped. HR Pufnstuf influenced fashion collaborations, electronic music remixes, comedy parodies, and serious academic studies across 5 full decades. The show's cultural penetration extended far beyond anyone's expectations for a series that only aired 17 episodes over 4 months in 1969. Jeffrey Kripal analyzed the show in his University of Chicago Press publication. David Martindale wrote an entire book called Pufnstuf and Other Stuff, published by St. Martin's Press in 1998. The show proved that genuine creative innovation creates lasting impact, regardless of commercial performance or episode count. Fact 35. The violence crackdown that backfired spectacularly. When NBC told the Crofts to reduce violence in their puppet show, the brothers complied by having Witchy Poo use less physical comedy with her minions. The network believed they were protecting young viewers from harmful content. What they actually accomplished was drawing more attention to a show that was already pushing boundaries in ways they never noticed. NBC spent their energy policing slapstick comedy between foam puppets, while the actual subversive content played out in plain sight. Witchy Poo's occasional wand swipes were considered dangerous. Hippie ants and magic mushroom transformations apparently seemed completely fine. Fact 34. The failed reboot that could not capture lightning. In 2005, animator Todd Kaufman pitched an animated revival of H.R. Pufnstuf to network executives. Kaufman would later create the series Grudge Band and work as an animator on Total Drama. His pitch included a modern theme song cover performed by the rock band Finger 11. The project generated genuine interest from television networks looking for nostalgic properties. The revival died because of option costs and the difficulty of translating the original show's specific magic into modern animation. Entertainment that worked perfectly in its original context often fails when translated to contemporary production methods. Some properties resist modernization no matter how much continued interest they generate. Fact 33. The $3 million gamble on artistic vision. The Crofts went massively over budget because they refused to compromise their artistic vision for financial constraints. Estimates vary between $1 million and $3 million over the original budget across just 17 episodes. NBC absolutely refused to provide any additional funding beyond the original agreement. Marty Krofft invested $350,000 of his own personal money into the production. Other colleagues and employees contributed their savings as well. The final episode, titled Jimmy Who, became a flashback compilation specifically because they could not afford to film another complete half-hour of new content. Fact 32. The international export that transcended language. H.R. Pufnstuf found audiences around the world despite being deeply rooted in American counterculture of the late 1960s. The show's visual appeal and universal themes of friendship and adventure translated across cultural boundaries that typically limit children's entertainment to their countries of origin. Global distribution proved that quality creative work could overcome language barriers when the content respected audience intelligence, regardless of age or nationality. A show about a boy trapped on an island of living puppets somehow connected with children who had never seen anything remotely similar in their own countries. Fact 31. The budget disaster that educated an industry. The financial catastrophe of H.R. Pufnstuf taught Hollywood crucial lessons about balancing artistic ambition with commercial reality. Every subsequent children's program learned from this expensive failure. Production companies began implementing stricter budget controls, specifically because of how badly the Crofts overshot their financial targets. This failure demonstrated that unlimited creativity needs financial discipline for sustainable success. The show's beautiful visuals came at a cost that nearly ended the careers of everyone involved. Financial disasters sometimes create more valuable knowledge than commercial successes. Fact 30. The live-action puppet revolution. H.R. Pufnstuf established television's first independent live-action life-size puppet series. Previous puppet programs were either studio productions owned by networks or used smaller-scale puppetry techniques. The Crofts owned their creation outright and pioneered technical approaches that would influence decades of subsequent programming. The show combined large-scale puppetry with live actors in ways that had never been attempted for episodic television. The costume and set construction techniques developed for this series became templates for theme park characters, sports mascots, and countless other productions around the world. Fact 29. The electronic remix that found new generations. In April 2011, electronic musician Nick Burtke released a track called Living Island that sampled audio and visuals from H.R. Pufnstuf. Burtke performs under the name Pogo and operates out of Perth, Australia. His remix introduced millennials to the show through internet culture and dance music platforms. Young people who had never experienced Saturday morning television discovered the show's psychedelic aesthetic through contemporary electronic music. Music provides the perfect medium for cultural transmission across decades. A show from 1969 reached audiences born in the 1990s because one musician recognized the creative potential in decades-old television footage. Fact 28. The Nike collaboration that proved cultural immortality. In July 2006, Nike released the Pufnstuf Dunk Low Pro SB sneakers, inspired by the show's colorful visual aesthetic. Designer Liam Sean Martin created the shoes as Style Number 3, 13170-341. The collaboration brought psychedelic puppet imagery into contemporary streetwear culture. This partnership proved that classic children's entertainment could influence modern product design decades after its original broadcast. Contemporary brands discovered that childhood memories carried genuine commercial appeal with adult consumers. The sneakers sold to collectors who wanted to wear their appreciation for a television show that aired before most of them were born. Fact 27. The academic recognition that legitimized children's television. Scholars began analyzing H.R. Pufnstuf as a legitimate cultural artifact worthy of serious intellectual attention. University professors wrote peer-reviewed papers about a Saturday morning puppet show. Books from respected academic publishers. This scholarly interest validated the artistic merit of children's entertainment in ways that nostalgic appreciation alone could never accomplish. Academic validation sometimes provides more lasting recognition than commercial success. A show that NBC canceled after one season became the subject of university courses and scholarly conferences. Fact 26. The comedy homages that kept the memory alive. The sketch comedy program Mr. Show with Bob and David created a parody called The Altered State of Drug Accusats that directly referenced the Croft style. Hosts Bob Odenkirk and David Cross introduced the segment as Sam and Criminy Kraft, in an obvious nod to Sid and Marty. The sketch featured a talking bong named Gandalf. These comedy tributes introduced the show to audiences who had never seen the original. Comedy writers who grew up watching Pufnstuf incorporated their childhood memories into their adult creative work. Every parody served as free advertising for a show that had been off the air for decades. Fact 25. The streaming era that made everything accessible again. Digital platforms made H.R. Pufnstuf available to audiences who never experienced Saturday morning television as children. The show currently streams on Amazon Prime Video, Philo, the Roku channel, Tubi, and Hoopla. In 2023, Cineverse launched a dedicated streaming channel specifically for Croft content. New viewers discovered the show's psychedelic aesthetic without any nostalgic context informing their experience. They watched purely because the content looked strange and interesting compared to contemporary children's programming. The weirdness that made the show unique in 1969 made it equally unique in the streaming era. Fact 24. The home video revival that connected generations. VHS releases in the 1980s and DVD collections in the 2000s introduced new generations to Living Island. Parents who watched the show as children shared their favorite episodes with their own kids. The physical media format allowed families to own copies of programming that had not aired on television in years. The show's visual style remained appealing across technological format changes. Children watching H.R. Pufnstuf on DVD in 2005 experienced the same wonder that children watching on Saturday mornings in 1969 had felt. The technology changed, but the magic remained exactly the same. Fact 23. The merchandising empire built on 17 episodes. H.R. Pufnstuf generated extensive merchandise despite lasting only one season on network television. Aladdin produced a lunchbox in 1970 that became a valuable collector's item worth hundreds of dollars. Milton Bradley released a board game in 1971. Funko produced pop figures for a 2019 New York Comic-Con exclusive. The licensing revenue helped offset some of the massive production losses. Characters became more valuable as merchandise than they ever were as television content. 17 episodes created enough recognizable intellectual property to sustain merchandise sales across 5 decades. Fact 22. The tragic death that reminded fans of passing time. Jack Wilde passed away on March 1, 2006, at age 53, from oral cancer that he blamed on his drinking and smoking habits. He had been diagnosed in 2001 and underwent surgery in July 2004 that removed his tongue and voice box. His posthumous autobiography titled It's a Dodger's Life was published in 2016. Wilde's death reminded fans how much time had passed since Saturday Mornings with Pufnstuf. The boy who played Jimmy had lived an entire complicated life after the cameras stopped rolling. His journey from promising young performer to tragic end illustrated the darker realities that entertainment industry success can bring. Fact 21. The alcoholism that consumed a child star. Jack Wilde developed severe alcoholism that plagued his entire adult life. By age 21, he was already dependent on alcohol. Throughout the 1980s, he experienced 3 cardiac arrests and numerous hospitalizations related to his drinking. The pressures of early fame contributed to patterns of self-destruction that took decades to break. Wilde finally achieved sobriety on March 6, 1989, after years of failed attempts. His story followed patterns seen in many child performers who achieved success before they had the maturity to handle it. The entertainment industry offered virtually no protection for young talent dealing with sudden wealth and attention. Fact 20. The Oscar nomination that started everything. Jack Wilde received an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor at age 16 for his unforgettable performance as the Artful Dodger in Oliver, released in 1968. He became the 4th youngest nominee ever in that prestigious category in Academy history. The ceremony took place on April 14, 1969, just months before H.R. Pufnstuf premiered on NBC. Wilde lost the award to veteran actor Jack Albertson that evening. This Oscar recognition made Wilde a hot commodity in Hollywood overnight. American producers wanted the charming British teenager for their projects. H.R. Pufnstuf represented his breakthrough into the American market and introduced him to millions of young viewers who had not seen his critically acclaimed film work on the big screen. Fact 19. The empire built on puppet innovation. H.R. Pufnstuf became the foundation for the entire Sid and Marty Krofft production company empire that would dominate Saturday morning television for years. The techniques developed for this series created templates for Land of the Lost, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, Lidsville, and dozens of other programs that followed in rapid succession. A single show's technical solutions determined how an entire company would operate for decades to come. The brothers had started with puppet shows at Six Flags theme parks in the late 1960s, where they honed their craft. Their work on the Banana Splits Adventure Hour caught the attention of NBC executives who saw their potential. Everything that came after built upon the innovations they pioneered while creating Living Island and its memorable inhabitants. Fact 18. The heat that nearly killed the performers. Los Angeles summer temperatures made performing inside heavy foam puppet costumes nearly impossible. Actors wearing the elaborate character suits risked heat exhaustion during extended shooting sessions. Production schedules had to accommodate the physical limitations of costume work that had never been attempted on this scale. The sacrifice behind entertainment magic often remains completely invisible to audiences. Children watching Pufnstuf and his friends had no idea that real human beings were suffering inside those colorful foam creations. The performers endured conditions that would be considered unsafe by modern production standards. Fact 17. The costume innovations that changed entertainment forever. H.R. Pufnstuf pioneered life-size puppet costumes that allowed human performers to act while completely hidden inside elaborate character designs. This approach influenced theme park mascots, sports team characters, and subsequent television productions around the world. The technical challenges required inventing solutions to problems nobody had solved before. The Krofts built 38 different sets, costing $1 million total. They created 86 distinct characters for a series that ran only 17 episodes. This level of production value for Saturday morning television was unprecedented and has rarely been matched since. Fact 16. The continuing legal shadow of theft. The McDonald's lawsuit established precedents that affected how copyright infringement cases would be decided for decades afterward. The Crofts' victory created the extrinsic and intrinsic test for substantial similarity that courts in the Ninth Circuit still use today. The total concept and field doctrine emerged directly from this landmark case. McDonald's response to losing was to phase out the infringing characters rather than pay perpetual royalties. Mayor McCheese and Officer Big Mac disappeared from advertising by the mid-1980s. Grimace was modified from 4 arms to 2. Fact 15. The legal battle that changed copyright law. The lawsuit between the Crofts and McDonald's Corporation officially lasted approximately 6 years in the courts, from September 1971 to the Ninth Circuit decision on October 12, 1977. The case name became a landmark citation in copyright law textbooks studied by every entertainment lawyer since. The initial jury awarded only $50,000 in damages. After appeals and legal maneuvering, the final statutory damages totaled $1,044,000. Adjusted for inflation, that represents over $5 million in 2025 purchasing power. Fact 14. The corporate theft that created television's biggest lawsuit. McDonald's advertising agency, Needham Harper & Steers, contacted the Crofts in early 1970 about potentially licensing H.R. Pufnstuf characters for a new advertising campaign. After several phone calls discussing the deal, Needham sent a letter indicating they were proceeding. Shortly after, they told the Crofts the campaign had been canceled entirely. The truth was far more sinister. Needham had already won the McDonald's contract before most of those phone calls even took place. Representatives visited Croft headquarters to examine their designs with absolutely no intention of ever working with them. They then hired former Croft employees to create costumes for McDonaldland. Most damning, McDonald's hired Lenny Weinrib, the voice of Pufnstuf himself, to provide voices for their stolen characters. They thought they could steal from the Crofts completely. They were wrong. Fact 13. The Martha Raye surprise that defied all expectations. Martha Raye arrived on the set of the 1970 Pufnstuf film with a notorious diva reputation that made cast and crew nervous about working with her. Everyone expected demanding behavior and difficult interactions. What they got was the complete opposite. Raye befriended the people working behind the scenes. She invited cast members to dinner at her home. The woman everyone feared turned out to be one of the warmest personalities in the entire production. However, Jack Wilde still wrote in his autobiography that she was a right old cow. The same person created completely opposite impressions. Fact 12. The Cass Elliot mystery that nobody could explain. Sid Croft cast his neighbor Cass Elliot from The Mamas and the Papas as Witch Hazel in the 1970 film. This was her only movie role ever. The beloved singer, known for her warmth, arrived on set and proceeded to keep everyone at arm's length for the entire production. Actress Joy Campbell McKenzie described Elliot as very distant, not rude or arrogant, but simply unwilling to mingle with the rest of the cast. Celebrity casting creates expectations that reality rarely matches. Fame does not guarantee friendliness on set. Fact 11. The laugh track that nobody actually wanted. NBC executives insisted on adding a laugh track to a psychedelic puppet show about a boy trapped on a magical island. The Crofts hated the idea completely. They felt canned laughter was entirely wrong for their fantasy programming. The network overruled them without any room for negotiation. Sitcom veteran Cy Rose served as producer and head writer. He insisted the laugh track would help audiences understand when scenes were supposed to be funny. Years later, Marty Krofft admitted that Rose had actually been right. Fact 10. The 3 voice actors who created an entire world. Virtually every character on Living Island was voiced by just 3 incredibly talented performers. Lenny Weinrib provided the voice for H.R. Pufnstuf himself, along with Orson Vulture, Stupid Bat, Pop Lolly, and numerous other residents. Weinrib also wrote every single episode of the series. Joan Gerber voiced Freddie the Flute, Judy Frog, and Grandmother Clock. Walker Edmiston provided Dr. Blinky, doing an impression of comedian Ed Wynn. This tiny cast created dozens of distinct voices while keeping production costs as low as possible. Fact 9. The audition where only 2 actresses showed up. Only 2 women auditioned for the role of Witchy Poo. The first was a then unknown actress named Penny Marshall, who would later become famous as Laverne on Laverne and Shirley. The Crofts rejected Marshall with the joke that they could not have a Brooklyn witch on their show. The second auditioner was Billie Hayes. She walked into the room, immediately set into a maniacal cackle, and jumped up on the desk without any prompting. The Crofts gave her the part on the spot. Margaret Hamilton, the original Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz, once said Billie was one of the best witches ever. Fact 8. The guardianship arrangement that everyone regretted. Jack Wilde was only 16 years old and completely alone in a foreign country while filming H.R. Pufnstuf. His family remained in England while he worked in Los Angeles, thousands of miles away. Marty Krofft made the decision to accept legal guardianship of the teenage performer so someone would be responsible for his welfare during production. Krofft later described this decision as a mistake. He already had 2 young daughters at home requiring his attention. Adding a troubled British teenager to his family responsibilities while managing a financially disastrous television production created stress that no one anticipated. Fact 7. The theme song that worked on every level. The theme song for H.R. Pufnstuf contained lyrics that worked perfectly for Saturday morning cereal consumption and also seemed to describe something else entirely to adult listeners. Phrases about taking trips and not being able to do just a little struck older viewers as potentially referencing drug tolerance. The music was written by Les Sarvis. Paul Simon received a co-writing credit after a successful plagiarism lawsuit determined the melody was too similar to his song 59th Street Bridge Song. Even the legal history of the theme song involved unexpected controversy. Fact 6. The drug references hidden in plain sight. Episodes of H.R. Pufnstuf contained content that adult viewers interpreted as deliberate winks to counterculture. Witchy Poo offered characters something called roach beef sandwiches. A character named Freddy transformed into a magic mushroom in episode 12. The show featured characters called hippie ants and hippie trees who sang songs about peace and love. Talking mushrooms smoked cigars throughout multiple episodes. Pufnstuf himself told characters to stop sniffing mysterious vapors. Either these were incredible coincidences, or the creators were deliberately inserting references that children would miss. Fact 5. The college audience that nobody expected. The Crofts discovered that their biggest fans were not the elementary school children they had designed the show to reach. University students across America were watching H.R. Pufnstuf in contexts the creators never imagined. Dorm rooms became viewing destinations where young adults analyzed every frame for hidden meanings. The show reportedly attracted interest from the Beatles themselves. Brian Epstein allegedly requested 16mm prints of episodes weekly. H.R. Pufnstuf succeeded with audiences the creators never intended to reach. Target demographics turned out to be more like suggestions than requirements. Fact 4. The confession that took 35 years. After decades of denying any intentional drug references in H.R. Pufnstuf, Marty Krofft gave an interview to the Times-Union newspaper published on February 13, 2004. The article reported that Krofft conceded the show's title had been an intentional marijuana reference, describing it as a prank to see if they could get such references past clueless NBC executives. However, this supposed confession contradicts numerous other statements the Crofts made across the years. Lenny Weinrib stated on True Hollywood Story in 2000 that the show was not drug-oriented to the people actually making it. The truth may be that the Crofts gave different answers at different times. Fact 3. The budget disaster that defined a legacy. Only 17 episodes of H.R. Pufnstuf were ever produced because the Crofts burned through money at a rate that shocked everyone involved. The per-episode budget was between $52,000 and $54,000. The show went over that budget by millions. NBC absolutely refused to provide any additional funding beyond the original agreement. The brothers chose to fund production themselves. Colleagues and employees contributed their personal savings. A beloved show was born from pure financial desperation. Fact 2. The name that worried NBC for all the wrong reasons. When the Crofts pitched their dragon character to NBC executives, the network had concerns about the name H.R. Pufnstuf. Those concerns had nothing to do with drug references. The executives worried the name sounded too effeminate for a Saturday morning program competing for young male viewers. Network representatives asked why boys would turn off Batman on ABC and Superman on CBS to watch something called a powder puff on NBC. They worried about exactly the wrong kind of high entirely. Fact 1. The Coca-Cola dragon that became television history. In 1968, Sid and Marty Krofft created a psychedelic puppet show called Kaleidoscope for the Coca-Cola Pavilion at Hemisphere 68 in San Antonio, Texas. The show featured a hero who gets transformed into a dragon named Luther by an evil witch. The show ran 12 times daily for 184 days in a 500-seat theater. Luther became the official mascot of the entire fair. NBC executive Larry White saw the Crofts' costume work on the Banana Splits Adventure Hour and told them they were really insane and should come up with their own show idea. They pitched their Luther concept, and NBC ordered what became the first independent live-action, life-size puppet series in television history. A corporate mascot designed to sell Coca-Cola to families transformed into the mayor of television's strangest island. Sid and Marty Krofft received stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame on February 13, 2020. Marty passed away on November 25, 2023, at age 86. The show that started as a Coca-Cola commercial became a lawsuit that changed copyright law, a cultural phenomenon that spawned academic analysis, and a childhood memory that millions still carry with them, all from 17 episodes that nearly bankrupted everyone involved. So, there you have it. 40 facts about the strangest show that ever aired on Saturday morning television. Drop a comment and let me know which fact surprised you the most, and whether you were a serial kid watching in pajamas or someone who discovered Pufnstuf later through very different circumstances.